Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Sunday, September 9th. Where'd all the summer go? You know. So I thought today we would wrap up. It's kind of a three-part, right? Knowing your limits and how to capitalize on that. And then where to focus and how to look at things and be grateful for what you have instead of constantly always reaching for what everybody else has that you think is going to make you happy. But when you get it, you find out you're no happier because you're looking at what's next, right? You don't get to really enjoy the things you have, the fruits of your labor, and how to look at things as a new beginning versus an end. I talked about you do a startup with the business and it's all nothing but up, right? Because you're just so excited. And after a few years, 7 years in business, you have to close the doors. Now you could look at that as an end, all right, and become sad, depressed, all these negative connotations that go with it, right? Or you could say, today I'm ending this, but we're going to do a new beginning on something else. It's all in where your focus is, all right? So today, it's kind of wrapping those two things, as well as, well, hang tight. Hey, welcome back. Yes, my name is Eric, if you didn't already know it, and this is the weekend. Today is Sunday. So, usually on the weekends, I go off the rail, all right, and work on personal development and ways to make you happier because it sucks being pissed and upset all the time, right? So, we started off on Friday with learning our limits, knowing where our limits are. And that kind of separates what I call the men and the boys. The boys are still using brawn, which is muscle, and the men are using wisdom because they don't have much brawn left. Most of us don't. So if we don't use wisdom, we're screwed, right? Versus digging that ditch with a shovel versus a mini excavator. Hey, we still got the job done, but it's just a different direction, right? And we knew that our limitations that we're not going to be able to dig at by hand like someone a lot younger. It's not a slight on young people at all. It's we all wish we could have kept what you have. And then yesterday we kind of went into like focusing, where to focus, and why we tend to focus on things that we don't have versus things that we do. And that leads to not having a greater uh, being grateful for what we have, right? And what we have may be something that a lot of people are envious that we do have it, but we don't look at it that way. It's just one more conquer and on to the next. And if you set yourself up like that, it's a recipe for disaster. Not knowing your limits, where you're focusing, and then trying to control things that you have no control over. Why are we talking about this? Well, it's because I'm guilty of all of it. I'll be the first one to tell you that. That, it's easy to fall into that rut. And a lot of times you fall into that rut when you're feeling overwhelmed or you're exhausted, physically exhausted, you know, or mentally exhausted, I guess. But they all tend to end up in the same direction, and that is a misplaced direction. You know, that shoulda, coulda, woulda, one thing that I've always, when I have to approach a project or something that I hate doing, let's just say that, my tendency is to look at it as a whole. All right? And let's say you have relatives coming and you got to clean the house. Now you look at the house and there's dust particles everywhere, hair from the dogs, general cleanup, but the house looks like a tornado hit it. And you're looking at it like it's too much. Because we're looking at it as cleaning the whole house instead of breaking it down into manageable pieces. And that's life in general, is breaking it down into manageable and waypoints to judge your success. Because if you can put it into manageable pieces, then you can make a list of those things that you need to get done, right? And check them off. And feel good that you succeeded at this one, at this one, at this one. And whether it's in business, at home, wherever, this is one of your greatest assets if you can put this as part of your repertoire. And that is, no matter what is put in front of you, if you have the ability to break it down and even delegate some of it. You can't delegate the whole thing because the other person would pass out from just overexhaustion or just looking at what needs to be done. But if you broke it down into 15, 20 steps, right? And you got 2 kids, and the 2 kids can help you out with 7 or 8 steps, so you can check those off the list. The overall has become smaller because more has gotten accomplished, right? And you feel good about it because you're having success at each step. And cleaning the house could be one step, would be getting the dishes done and put away. Now, getting the dishes done and put away is more manageable than focusing on having to clean the whole house. There's some things that you can delegate and other things that you can't. I mean, I guess you could hire somebody to come in if you had the extra money. But that's all part of delegating. There's people out there that make a good income just by going in and organizing people's lives. Their stuff. Now, let's relate it to starting a business. This is where a lot of people fail. And that is, they look at the whole of everything they need to accomplish to even get it to the point of, let's say, turning a wrench in a repair shop. Because it becomes too much, unmanageable. And there are a lot of steps in there that you need to accomplish before you open the doors for business. And that's simply finding a place to do it. There's one. Making sure that you have the necessary, I'm talking a full-fledged, shop. You need to make sure you have the necessary insurances. You're going to need a tax ID. so that you can pay your taxes. This would be for your sales tax that you collect from people. And all you're doing basically is collecting it for the state that you're out of. See, in New York, I collect the sales tax for the state of New York, and I pay them. I set it aside in the savings account daily, so I know that it's there. So when it comes time to pay the sales tax, I just log on, put in the numbers, and send them a check for the amount. They're not taking money from me. And that's a misconception with a lot of people when it comes to sales tax. Oh, the government's taxing me. Well, they're not taxing me. They're taxing my customers. And I am the means to collect it for them. And when I pay it, I get like a penny on the dollar or something. It's not a lot, but it's still, you're not taking it from me. It's from my customer. My customer's paying that part of it above what the cost of the repair is. But you still need to be able to collect it, to pay it. So you need to have the necessary sales tax ID in place. You need a business name. And you want to make sure that you research it so that you're not competing with somebody else out there that already has that name. In the state of New York, they won't allow two companies to have the same name unless it is a franchise like McDonald's or it's a Walmart like Sam Hunt, is it? No. Well, it don't matter. But he named all his stores the same. He wanted the same look and feel depending upon which store you went to. And he changed certain things in the stores, right? In the southern states, he looked more at southern cooking and southern needs. In the northern states, he did the same. He looked at what the needs are in that area and made sure to try to stock that in his big stores. And he started off with just like a like supermarket type thing, and it grew, right? But he didn't do it all in one step, So you got your location, you got your business name, you got your sales tax, you got your insurances, especially liability insurance. You're all up to code because you can't start a shop in a residential area if it's not deemed commercial. Because if you're making money at it, it's commercial. And then in our state, in New York, you also have to, if you're going to be using a vehicle for the business and you are going to be doing pickup and drop-offs, it is required to have a DOT number. And the DOT number costs you nothing. It just shows that, that truck is making at least $1 profit as far as I'm concerned. This is how I look at it. If you're using that truck or car for your business and it's bringing in revenue, pick up and drop off, what have you, then you need a DOT number. If it's just for yourself, if you're moving your lawnmower from your place to your kids, you don't need DOT numbers. But if you have a reputable business and you are using that vehicle for even both, you still need to have the DOT numbers. Well, that takes time to research it and figure out how to do it, right? And I know there's a lot of steps I'm forgetting that I had to go through in order to get there. But it brings us back to looking at it as a whole. They could be overwhelming, and that's where a lot of people just give up because they don't have that ability to break it down into manageable steps. And for the people that think they're going to become successful right outside the gate and retire within a year, sometimes it takes a year or two just to get everything in place. Rome wasn't built in a day. and neither is your business. I mean, we haven't even got to opening the doors yet to figure out how to get customers to come into your shop. And everything so far is taking time and money. Because especially your insurances. I know in order for me to do business with any of the parts, OEM part manufacturers, they wanted at the time at least a $5 million rider for liability. And that costs money. Thank goodness I've never had to use it, but I still have to pay every year to have it. And if you're in that first year of getting these things set up and in place, you're paying that out even though your shop is not physically doing any work. And then once you start doing work and you start employing people, now you've got workman's comp, payroll, and more stuff to keep track of. That's why you hear Amos talk about if it ever comes down to have to have an employee, he's not going to do it. Because it is a pain in the ass. It is. And then trying to find good employees that want you to succeed and you want them to succeed. But that's what we do in life in general, is we look at things in a whole instead of in manageable pieces. And like I say, it doesn't matter your business, your home life, anything that you take on. If you don't figure out and learn how to break it down, then you're going to be part of the ones that just simply give up or don't do it. Because that's an option too, is just don't clean the house. Screw your relatives, right? It is. I mean, and that's what happens. A lot of people just say screw it. That's why you hear about that there are more failures than there are successes when it comes to starting a business. There's more failures because too many people look at it as a whole and don't have that ability, haven't learned how to. And it is a learnable trait. It is not something that either you have or you don't have. It's something that you are taught, that you learned. A lot of us had on-the-job training of you need to learn this. And that goes back to, focusing on things that you can't change and doing things that you can. Because all that energy you wasted on things you can't change, that could have been used to take care of things that you could change in manageable pieces. Don't take my word for it. Just compare it to your life and where you succeeded and where you haven't been that great. And look at why. See, that's the other thing, human nature. We look more at our failures than we do at our successes. And the failures get a higher rating than our successes. And that, to me, is the mind playing tricks on you. It's always in survival mode. I said a long time ago, the 5-second rule basically is if something comes in, you're trying to brainstorm something and trying to decide whether to do it. The first 5 seconds will tell you whether you should or you shouldn't. Because after that 5 seconds has passed, now the mind is in survival mode. It's kicking in. I mean, it's like the devil on one side and the angel on the other, and the devil's saying, do it, do it. And the angel's saying, well, you might want to wait. But most times that the thought pattern in that first 5 seconds, if you ask yourself, should I do this? And within the first 5 seconds is usually your answer. After the 5 seconds has passed, then your mind starts giving you reasons not to. And it's not because it's not a good idea, but it starts saying it was too risky. This is what could happen, negative connotations to it. And it's all to try to keep you safe and out of harm's way. And you can't always be safe and out of harm's way. If you want to become successful at anything in life, you're risking something and you're putting yourself out there in harm's way, right? But you'll have a greater sense of accomplishment and you'll learn to control that first 5 seconds and looking at things that you can control and how to go about it. Does that make any sense? Everything that I've talked about, from knowing your limits to focus, to how you take on things, unrealistic expectations, to things that you can't control. If those things are taught, they are not something that is given to you at birth. We all come into this world the same. It's just some of us are slower learners than others, right? But successful people have learned to either break it down or they've hired somebody that's very good at breaking things down and tackling them for them. And that's a super employee. But there's nothing out there saying you can't learn how to do it if you want to do it. It goes back to, and I've used this metaphor numerous times, where somebody tells me, so-and-so makes me feel this. It's their fault. How the hell is it their fault because you are feeling X, Y, or Z? Because the reality of it is no one can make you feel anything other than what you want to feel. And when I find people that are really upset by what somebody has said, it's because they've already thought that of themselves. And that person saying it just re-emphasized it and just drove it in deeper. It's already there. You already feel that way about yourself. And then hearing someone say it just makes it that much more intense. But in the end, you have the ability to control how you react, feel about anything in life. Does that make sense? If I call you an asshole, you got a couple different ways to take it, right? You can either think that you're an asshole and feel bad and go tell everybody how I called you an asshole and made you feel bad. You can blow it off. Or you can just take the attitude of the positive one is, well, maybe I am an asshole sometimes. But that's what you got to love about me. But those last 2 points are not a negative connotation, right? They're a positive reaction to something. And that's why I'm not too keen on what they call it, small talk, where they gossip and backstab each other and think that that's how to get ahead. No. And the one the brown noser, the little rat, the one that tattles to the boss all the time about what everybody else is doing. That never flew in my book. I don't think too highly of tattletales. That tells me you're spending more time watching everybody else do the work instead of doing the work yourself. If you got that much extra time on your hands, let's find more for you to do. And I've always been a person that if you have a problem with me, come to me and talk to me. Because it's better to talk to the horse's head than the horse's ass, which is other people that are talking behind your back, right? But I'm going to start wrapping this up. The main thing I want you to focus on just for a week and see how it does, and that is looking at what your limitations are, where you're really good and where you're not. And then focusing on where you're really good and are there ways to improve in those areas that you're not? Is it worthwhile to improve in those areas? And then I want you to also look at your focus. This week I want you to focus on what you have and being grateful. I also want you to look at things and realize things that are out of your control. And if they're out of your control, shelve them. They're not worth your time or day, because no matter what you do, it's not going to change the outcome. So let's get our focus on things that we can change and put our focus there. We're training our mind and our brain to do things differently in a positive way. And then lastly, for a week, stop looking at unrealistic expectations. Look at what you have in front of you. Is it something that you want to get accomplished? If it is, then this week break it down into manageable pieces of where you can accomplish it. Whether you did part of it one night after work and then 2 or 3 days later you do the other part. But put it in ways that you can be successful at it. And you'll get a lot more done. Even if you get 9 to the 10 steps done, you're still 90% accomplished. And that 10% probably could wait till next week. But just see what you can get accomplished on those things that you do want to get done. And watch how easy it becomes if you break it down. Because you don't have that scatterbrain effect. If you walk into the house and you're thinking you got to clean the whole house, you start looking at the dog hair because they're shedding. So you start sweeping, and before you can finish sweeping, you notice that a lot of stuff needs to be dusted. So you stop there and you grab a dust rag and you start dusting, and you see something else. You're not completing each job. You're just jumping here to here to here as the mind spots, right? And none of them will get completed because you'll get overwhelmed. I do. So on that note, you guys have a great Sunday. And just try it. And let me know how it works. Does it make a change in your life? I think it will. And you're never too old to do this. Right? So you guys have a great Sunday. And we'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning.